The carriage door slammed shut behind her like a prison gate. Lillian Harrow stood in the courtyard of Blackmore Estate, rain soaking through her wedding dress, and watched her new husband's back disappear through the oak doors without a single word. Not welcome, not come inside, nothing. Just the echo of his boots on stone and the metallic click of the latch. She'd been married for 6 hours. He'd looked at her twice. The servants wouldn't meet her eyes. The halls stretched endlessly in both directions, cold as a mausoleum. And somewhere in this maze of stone and silence, she was expected to build a life with a man who had already made it clear. She was an obligation, a signature on a contract, a necessary inconvenience in a transaction that had nothing to do with her at all. This wasn't a marriage, it was a burial, and Lillian Harrow had just been sealed inside. If you want to see how far a woman can rise when she refuses to break, stay until the end of this story. Drop a comment with your city so I can see where this tale has traveled. Hit that like button, and let's begin. The first night, Lillian didn't cry. She stood in the middle of the chamber they'd assigned her. Not the Duchess's quarters, she noted, but a guest room down a separate corridor, and methodically removed the pins from her hair. Each one clinked into the porcelain dish on the vanity with a small, sharp sound that felt like the only real thing in the room. The dress came off in pieces. The veil. The gloves. The ivory silk that had cost her father half a year's income, now crumpled on the floor like discarded paperwork. She should have been with her husband right now. That's what every wedding night in history demanded. But Adrian Vire, Duke of Blackmore, had walked her to this door, opened it, said, "You'll find everything you need," and left. Not even a good night. Lillian pulled on a nightgown, one she'd packed herself, plain cotton, nothing like the lace monstrosity her mother had tucked into her trousseau, and sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress was good, the linens were fine, the fire in the hearth burned steady and warm. Everything was perfect, everything was wrong. She didn't sleep. Around 3 in the morning, she got up and explored. The room had a writing desk, a wardrobe already stocked with dresses she didn't recognize, a bookshelf with texts in 3 languages. Someone had prepared this space. Someone had anticipated her arrival, but not him. When dawn broke gray and cold through the window, Lillian dressed herself, no maid had come, and went looking for answers. Blackmore Estate was a labyrinth. Corridors branched into hallways that looped back on themselves. Staircases led to locked doors. Entire wings sat dark and unused, furniture draped in cloth like corpses waiting for burial. Lillian walked for an hour before she found the kitchens, and even then, it was only because she followed the smell of bread. The staff froze when she entered. A young woman holding a mixing bowl actually took a step back. The cook, a heavy-set man with flour on his apron, stopped mid-chop and stared at her like she'd materialized out of fog. "Good morning," Lillian said. Silence. "I'm looking for breakfast." More silence. The cook glanced at someone behind her. Lillian turned. A tall, thin woman in black stood in the doorway, hands folded, expression unreadable. "Your Grace?" the woman said. Her voice was smooth, controlled, and completely devoid of warmth. "Breakfast is served in the morning room. I'll have someone bring a tray." "I'd rather eat here." The woman's eyebrow twitched. "That would be, irregular?" "So is being left alone on my wedding night. But here we are." The cook made a noise that might have been a suppressed laugh. The woman in black did not react. "I am Mrs. Hewitt," she said. "Housekeeper. If your Grace requires anything, you may inform me, and I will see to it." "What I require," Lillian said, "is to know where my husband is." "His Grace does not keep a set schedule." "Then where is he now?" Mrs. Hewitt's face could have been carved from marble. "I do not know." Lillian studied her. The woman wasn't lying, but she wasn't helping either. This wasn't hostility. It was something worse, complete and total neutrality, the kind of carefully maintained distance that said, "I will do my job and nothing more." "Fine," Lillian said. "Then I'll take that breakfast, in the morning room. Alone, I assume? Unless His Grace joins you." "Has he ever?" Mrs. Hewitt paused. "No, Your Grace." Lillian smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. "Then I won't hold my breath." The morning room was smaller than she expected, just a table, 2 chairs, and a wall of windows overlooking a gray, windswept garden. The tray arrived 10 minutes later, tea, toast, eggs, jam, all of it perfectly prepared, all of it tasteless. Lillian ate methodically, her mind cataloging details. The estate was old but well maintained. The servants were trained but wary. The house itself felt empty. Not abandoned, but hollow, like a body with no heartbeat. She was halfway through her second cup of tea when the door opened. Adrian Vire stepped inside. Lillian's first instinct was to stand. Her second was to throw the teacup at his head. She did neither. She set the cup down, folded her hands in her lap, and waited. He looked the same as he had yesterday, tall, dark-haired, sharp-featured, handsome in the distant, untouchable way of a statue. He wore riding clothes, and there was mud on his boots. He'd been outside. For hours, probably. "You're awake," he said. "I am." He stood there, one hand still on the door, like he was deciding whether to stay or leave. Lillian waited. "I trust the room was adequate," he said finally. "It was fine." "Good." Another pause. Lillian counted to 10 in her head. "Is there something you need?" she asked. "No." "Then why are you here?" His jaw tightened. For a moment she thought he might actually answer. Instead, he said, "Mrs. Hewitt will help you settle in. If you require anything, inform her." "I already met Mrs. Hewitt." "Good." He turned to leave. "Adrian." He stopped, didn't turn around. "We're married," Lillian said quietly. "I understand this wasn't your choice. It wasn't mine either. But we're here now, and I'd like to know what you expect from me." His shoulders were rigid. "I expect nothing." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." He left. Lillian sat in the morning room for another 20 minutes, staring at the cold eggs on her plate. Then she stood, smoothed her skirts, and walked back into the maze. If he expected nothing, then she'd give him everything, just to prove him wrong. The estate had 43 rooms. Lillian counted them over the next 3 days. 43 rooms, and Adrian was never in any of them when she was. She saw evidence of him. A book left open in the library, a glass of whiskey half-finished in the study, boot prints in the mud outside the stables. But the man himself remained a ghost. She stopped trying to find him. Instead, she focused on the house. The servants were a problem. Not hostile, but distant. They answered her questions with "Yes, Your Grace" and "No, Your Grace," and absolutely nothing else. Mrs. Hewitt was the worst. Polite, efficient, and utterly impenetrable. Lillian needed an ally. She found one in the stables. The groom was a boy, 17, maybe 18, with red hair and a nervous habit of twisting his cap in his hands. He was mucking out stalls when Lillian appeared in the doorway, and he nearly dropped his pitchfork. "Your Grace," he stammered, should I get someone?" "No," Lillian said. "I came to see the horses." He blinked. "The horses?" "I assume the Duke keeps horses." "Yes, ma'am. 5. Well, 6, counting yours." "I have a horse?" His Grace ordered one brought in. "A mare. She's in the back." Lillian followed him through the stables. The mare was a gray, sleek, and strong, with intelligent eyes and a calm demeanor. Lillian ran a hand down her neck. "What's her name?" "Doesn't have one yet. His Grace said you'd choose." Lillian glanced at the boy. "What's your name?" "Peter, ma'am." "How long have you worked here, Peter?" 3 years. "Do you like it?" He hesitated. "It's fine, ma'am." "That's not an answer." Peter's mouth twitched. "No, ma'am, it's not." Lillian smiled. "I'll call her Ash," she said, stroking the mare's nose. "And Peter, I need you to do something for me." "Anything, Your Grace." "Stop calling me Your Grace. My name is Lillian, and I need to know everything about this estate that no one's going to tell me." Peter stared at her. Then, slowly, he grinned. "Yes, ma'am." Over the next 2 weeks, Lillian learned more from Peter than she had from anyone else. The estate was struggling, not financially, the Duke had money, but practically. The tenant farms hadn't been inspected in years, the orchards were overgrown. Half the staff positions were unfilled because no one wanted to work in a house where the master never spoke, and the mistress didn't exist. Adrian managed everything from a distance. He signed papers, approved budgets, sent instructions through Mrs. Hewitt, but he never visited the tenants, never walked the land, never involved himself in anything that required actual human contact. "People think he's cold," Peter said one afternoon, while Lillian helped him repair a fence. "But I don't think that's it." "What do you think it is?" Peter hammered a nail, considering. "I think he's scared." "Of what?" "Everything." Lillian thought about that. Thought about the man who couldn't look at her during their wedding vows, who locked himself away in empty rooms and rode out into the rain rather than sit across a table from his own wife. Scared. Maybe. But she was scared too. And she was still here. The first time Lillian saw Adrian after that conversation, it was by accident. She'd been in the library, searching for a book on estate management, when the door opened. He walked in, saw her, and stopped. For 5 full seconds, neither of them moved. Then Adrian said, "I didn't know you were here." "I'm often here. I'll come back later." "Don't." He paused, hand on the door. "There are 4,000 books in this room," Lillian said. "I think we can share." His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty, maybe, or surprise that she wasn't running. He stepped inside, walked to the far end of the room, pulled a book from the shelf, and sat down in a chair by the window, as far from her as physically possible. Lillian went back to her search. They sat in silence for an hour. It wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't hostile either. It was something. A beginning, maybe, or the shadow of one. When Lillian finally found the book she needed and stood to leave, Adrian spoke. "You've been making changes." She stopped. "Yes. The tenants are talking. I imagine they are." "You didn't ask permission." Lillian turned to face him. "Should I have?" He didn't answer. "I'm your wife," she said quietly. "This is my home too, or it's supposed to be. I'm trying to make it one. If that's a problem, tell me now." Adrian looked at her. Really looked, for the first time since the wedding. His eyes were dark, unreadable. "It's not a problem," he said finally. "Good." She left. Behind her, Adrian sat very still, staring at the book in his hands without seeing a single word. The changes started small. Lillian reorganized the household schedules. She visited the tenants, listened to their complaints, and started addressing them one by one. She hired new staff, a second cook, a groundskeeper, 2 maids who actually smiled when they worked. Mrs. Hewitt disapproved. Lillian didn't care. The housekeeper cornered her one morning in the hallway. "Your Grace, these decisions should be discussed with His Grace first." "Have you discussed them with him?" No. "Then I'll do the same." Mrs. Hewitt's mouth pressed into a thin line. "This is irregular." "Yes," Lillian said. "It is." She walked away. That night, Adrian appeared at dinner. Lillian had been eating alone in the dining room, a massive echoing space designed for 20 people, when the door opened and he stepped inside. He didn't say anything, just took the seat at the opposite end of the table and waited while a servant brought his plate. Lillian watched him over the candlelight. He looked tired, thinner than he'd been at the wedding, like he wasn't sleeping. "Thank you for joining me," she said. He cut into his food. "Mrs. Hewitt said you've been making changes." "I have." "Why?" "Because they needed to be made." "I didn't ask you to." "You didn't ask me not to." His knife paused. He looked up. "You don't need my permission." "I know." Something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. "Then why are we having this conversation?" "Because I wanted to see if you'd show up." He studied her. "And now?" "Now I know you will, if it matters enough." Adrian set down his knife. For a long moment he just looked at her, this woman who had walked into his life like a storm and refused to be ignored. "You're not what I expected," he said quietly. "Neither are you." "Is that good or bad?" Lillian considered. "I don't know yet." He almost smiled, almost. They finished the meal in silence, but this time it felt different, like they were 2 people sitting in the same room instead of 2 strangers occupying separate worlds. When Lillian stood to leave, Adrian spoke again. "The tenants like you." She paused. "You've been checking." "I have responsibilities." "So do I." He didn't respond, But when she left, she felt his eyes on her back all the way to the door.
Sunny Bises.
Spring came slowly to Blackmore. The estate thawed in pieces, first the gardens, then the orchards, then the fields beyond. Lillian threw herself into the work. She rode out with Peter to survey the land, met with tenants, planned repairs, organized planting schedules. The staff started calling her Your Grace, with something that sounded almost like respect. Adrian watched from a distance. She'd see him sometimes, standing at a window or riding along the ridge above the fields. He never approached, never interfered. But he was always there, a dark figure on the edge of her world. It should have bothered her. Instead, it became oddly comforting, like proof that she wasn't completely alone. One afternoon, she was in the garden with the new groundskeeper, a gruff man named Thomas, when Adrian appeared on the path. Thomas saw him first and straightened immediately. Your Grace. Adrian nodded, then to Lillian, May I speak with you? Lillian handed Thomas the shears. Of course. They walked in silence through the rows of hedges. Adrian kept his hands behind his back, his posture rigid. I received a letter from the magistrate, he said finally. He mentioned you've been settling disputes. 3 of them. That's my responsibility. You weren't doing it. He stopped walking, turned to face her. You don't know what you're interfering with. Then explain it to me. It's not that simple. Everything is simple if you actually talk about it. His jaw tightened. I don't... He cut himself off, looked away. I'm not good at this. At what? This. Talking. Being present. Lillian's anger softened slightly. Why? Because every time I am, something breaks. The words came out rough, like they'd been buried for years. Adrian's hands clenched at his sides. I don't understand, Lillian said quietly. I know. He met her eyes. And I can't explain it. Not in a way that makes sense. Try. He shook his head. You'll leave. I'm not going anywhere. You will. Everyone does. Lillian stepped closer, close enough that he couldn't look away. I'm not everyone. Adrian stared at her. Something raw and desperate flickered across his face, then vanished, locked down behind that carefully controlled mask. I need to go, he said. Adrian, I'm sorry. He walked away. Lillian stood in the garden, surrounded by new growth and spring air, and felt something crack inside her chest. He was afraid. Peter had been right, but it wasn't fear of her, or of failure, or of anything external. He was afraid of himself, and Lillian had no idea how to fight that. The first real fight happened in June. Lillian had hired a new steward, a competent man named Mr. Davies who actually understood crop rotation, and Adrian found out through Mrs. Hewitt instead of from Lillian directly. He cornered her in the study. You hired Davies without consulting me. Lillian looked up from the ledger she'd been reviewing. Yes? That's not acceptable. Why? Because I'm the Duke. Personnel decisions go through me. When was the last time you made one? His eyes flashed. That's not the point. It's exactly the point. Lillian stood. You've been absent for years, Adrian. The estate is falling apart because you won't engage with it. I'm fixing that. If you don't like how I'm doing it, then step up and do it yourself. You don't understand? Then make me understand. Stop hiding behind closed doors and actually explain what you want from this place. From me. From any of it. I want you to stop acting like you belong here. The words hit like a slap. Lillian went very still. What? Adrian's face paled. I didn't... Say it again. Lillian, you married me. You brought me here. And now you're telling me I don't belong? That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? He opened his mouth, closed it, turned away, gripping the edge of the desk so hard his knuckles went white. I don't know, he said hoarsely. I don't know what I mean. I don't know what I'm doing. Every time I see you making this place better, I feel like I'm disappearing. Lillian's anger drained away, replaced by something sharper. Understanding. You think I'm replacing you, she said quietly. He didn't answer. I'm not. She moved closer. I'm trying to build something with you, but I can't do that if you won't let me in. I don't know how. Then learn. Adrian looked at her. His expression was so raw, so unguarded, that Lillian almost reached for him. Then he pulled back, locked it all down, became the statue again. I need time, he said. How much? I don't know. Lillian's heart sank. That's not good enough. It's all I have. She wanted to scream, wanted to shake him, wanted to break through that wall and drag him into the light. Instead, she nodded. Fine, take your time. But Adrian, I won't wait forever. She walked out. Behind her, Adrian stood alone in the study, staring at the place where she'd been, feeling the emptiness swallow him whole. Summer blazed hot and bright. Lillian poured herself into the work. The estate flourished under her attention. Fields green and productive, tenants happy, the house finally feeling like a home. She rode Ash every morning, worked until sunset, and fell into bed exhausted. She barely saw Adrian. When she did, it was in passing. A glimpse in the hallway, a nod at dinner, silence in the library. He was pulling away again, retreating into whatever fortress he'd built inside himself. Lillian told herself she didn't care. She was lying. Then, in late July, Lord Garrett arrived. He was a friend of Adrian's, or so he claimed, a visiting nobleman passing through on his way to London. Tall, charming, quick to smile. Everything Adrian wasn't. He stayed for a week. And he paid attention to Lillian, not in an improper way, nothing overt or scandalous. But he talked to her, asked her opinions, listened when she spoke, laughed at her observations about the estate, and complimented her improvements. It was nice. Lillian hadn't realized how starved she'd been for simple human connection until Garrett offered it. On the 5th day of his visit, they were walking through the gardens when Garrett said, "You've done remarkable work here." "Thank you." Adrian's a fool for not seeing it. Lillian glanced at him. "You're his friend." "I am, which is why I can say he's a fool." Garrett smiled. "You deserve better than being ignored. It's complicated. It doesn't have to be." They stopped at the edge of the rose garden. Garrett turned to face her, his expression serious. "Lillian, may I be honest? Please. If I were your husband, I would never let you feel this alone." Something twisted in Lillian's chest. Not attraction, but longing. For the idea of what he was offering. For a marriage that felt like partnership instead of solitary confinement. "But you're not my husband," she said quietly. "No." Garrett's smile turned sad. "I'm not." He reached out, not to touch her, just a gesture, his hand hovering near hers. Lillian looked at it, thought about how easy it would be to take it, to let someone else offer comfort. She didn't. "Thank you," she said, "for being kind, but I'm not ready to give up yet." Garrett lowered his hand. "He's lucky to have you. He doesn't know what he has." "Then make him see it." Lillian smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm trying." They walked back to the house in silence. What neither of them saw was the figure standing at the second-floor window, watching them with an expression of barely controlled fury. Adrian's hands were shaking. That night, Adrian appeared at dinner for the first time in weeks. Garrett was there too, charming and talkative. He and Lillian discussed estate business, laughed about a mishap with the new chickens, traded stories about London society. Adrian sat at the head of the table and said nothing, but Lillian could feel his eyes on her, burning. When Garrett finally excused himself for the evening, Adrian didn't move, just sat there, staring at his untouched wine. "Is something wrong?" Lillian asked. "No." "You're lying." His gaze snapped to hers. "Am I?" "Yes." Adrian stood abruptly. "How long has he been touching you?" Lillian froze. "What?" "Garrett. How long?" "He hasn't. We were just walking." "Don't lie to me." She stood too, anger flaring. "I'm not lying. And even if something had happened, what right do you have to care? You've ignored me for months. You won't talk to me, won't touch me, won't even look at me most of the time. And now you're angry because someone else showed me basic human kindness?" "He was holding your hand." "He wasn't. His hand was... It doesn't matter. Nothing happened. It looked like something was about to." Lillian laughed bitterly. "And you would know? You've barely been in the same room as me since our wedding." That's not fair. None of this is fair, her voice cracked. I'm your wife, Adrian. I've tried so hard to make this work. I've rebuilt your estate, earned the respect of your tenants, turned this empty house into a home. And for what? So you can lock yourself away and pretend I don't exist? I don't pretend. Yes, you do. Every single day. Adrian's composure shattered. Because if I don't, I'll destroy everything. The words exploded out of him, raw and desperate. Lillian stepped back. What? Everything I touch breaks. His voice was ragged. Everyone I care about leaves. My parents are dead. My brother won't speak to me. Every relationship I've ever had has ended in betrayal or loss. So yes, I keep my distance. Because it's safer. For both of us. That's not how this works. It's how I work. Then you need to change. I can't. You won't. They stared at each other across the table, both breathing hard. I'm trying, Adrian said finally. His voice was barely a whisper. Every day, I'm trying. But I don't know how to be what you need. Lillian's anger melted into something more painful, pity, and worse, understanding. I don't need you to be perfect, she said quietly. I just need you to be here, really, here, with me. I don't know if I can. Then we have nothing. She walked out. This time, Adrian didn't watch her go. He sank into his chair, dropped his head into his hands, and finally let himself break. Garrett left the next morning. Before he did, he found Lillian in the stables. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't mean to cause trouble. You didn't. Lillian stroked Ash's neck, not looking at him. This was already broken. Can it be fixed? I don't know. Garrett touched her shoulder, briefly, gently. For what it's worth, I think he loves you. He just doesn't know how to show it. Lillian closed her eyes. Love isn't enough if you can't live with it. No, Garrett agreed. It's not. He left. Lillian stood in the stable, surrounded by the smell of hay and horses, and wondered how much longer she could keep fighting for a man who wouldn't fight for himself. The answer, she was starting to realize, was not much longer. Something had to change, or she would have to leave. August came like a fever. The heat pressed down on Blackmore, turning the stone walls into ovens and the air thick enough to choke on. Lillian woke each morning with her nightgown stuck to her skin and fell asleep each night listening to the distant rumble of storms that never quite arrived. Adrian had vanished again. Not physically, she still saw him occasionally, a shadow moving through the corridors at odd hours. But mentally, emotionally, he'd retreated so far inside himself that Lillian wasn't sure he was even there anymore. She stopped trying to reach him. Instead, she focused on the harvest. The wheat was coming in heavy this year, and the tenants needed help organizing the work crews. Lillian spent her days in the fields, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back, coordinating schedules and settling disputes. The work was exhausting and dirty and exactly what she needed. At least out there she could see the results of her effort. Peter found her one afternoon leaning against a fence post staring at nothing. You all right, ma'am? Lillian looked at him. The boy had grown over the summer, taller, broader in the shoulders, more confident. He didn't twist his cap anymore when he talked to her. I'm thinking about leaving, she said. Peter's eyes widened. What? Not the estate, just him, the marriage, all of it. You can't. Why not? Because, Peter struggled for words, because you belong here. Everyone knows it. The tenants, the staff, even Mrs. Hewitt, though she'd never say it. You've made this place something. You can't just walk away from that. I'm not walking away from the estate, Lillian said quietly. I'm walking away from a husband who won't even try. Have you told him? I've told him everything. He doesn't listen. Peter kicked at the dirt. Maybe he needs a bigger reason to listen. Like what? Like actually losing you. Lillian thought about that, about what it would take to make Adrian see her, really see her, not as a duchess or an obligation, but as a person he was actively choosing to push away. Maybe, she said, but I'm tired of playing games. It's not a game if it's real. She looked at him. When did you get so wise? Peter grinned. I listened to you talk. Some of it stuck. Lillian laughed despite herself. It felt strange, that sound, like something she'd forgotten how to do. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For being honest. For not treating me like I'm made of glass." Peter's expression turned serious. "You're the strongest person here, ma'am. Don't forget that." He walked away before she could respond. Lillian stood in the field, surrounded by golden wheat and blue sky, and made a decision. If Adrian wouldn't come to her, she'd force him to, one way or another, even if it meant burning everything down. She started small. First, she stopped attending dinners. Let the servants set the table for two and watched as Adrian ate alone night after night. Mrs. Hewitt reported that he'd asked where she was. Lillian sent back a simple message: busy. Then she started taking her meals in her room, in the library, in the garden, anywhere but the formal dining room where Adrian might appear. She was doing to him what he'd done to her for months, making him invisible. It felt petty. It felt necessary. Adrian noticed. She could tell because he started leaving notes. Small things, slipped under her door or left on her desk. Just a sentence or two. "The east field looks good. Davy says you're doing well. I hope you're sleeping." Lillian burned them all. 2 weeks into her silent campaign, Adrian cornered her in the hallway outside the library. "Why are you avoiding me?" Lillian didn't stop walking. "I'm not avoiding you. I'm giving you what you wanted. Space." "I never said—" "You didn't have to say it. You showed me, every day for 6 months. He grabbed her arm, not hard, but firm enough to stop her. "Let go," Lillian said. "Not until you talk to me." "There's nothing to say." "There's everything to say. I know I haven't been what you need, but shutting me out won't fix that." Lillian yanked her arm free. "You don't get to lecture me about shutting people out. That's all you've done since the day we met." "I'm trying to change." "No, you're not. You're trying to avoid the consequences of not changing. There's a difference." Adrian's face went pale. "That's not fair." "None of this is fair," Lillian's voice cracked. "I've given you everything, Adrian. My time, my effort, my patience. I've rebuilt your home, earned your tenants' loyalty, tried so hard to be someone you could care about, and you've given me nothing. Not your trust, not your honesty, not even basic companionship. So yes, I'm avoiding you. Because I'm done begging for scraps. What do you want from me? I want you to fight for this. For us. For something other than your own fear. I don't know how. Then learn." She was shouting now, months of frustration pouring out. "Figure it out. Because I can't keep doing this alone. I won't." Adrian stared at her, breathing hard. For a moment she thought he might finally say something real, something that mattered. Instead, he stepped back. "I'm sorry." That was all. Just, "I'm sorry." Lillian felt something inside her chest go cold and hard. "That's not enough," she said quietly. She walked away. This time, Adrian didn't follow. 1. September brought rain. It poured for days, turning the roads to mud and trapping everyone inside. The harvest stalled. Tempers flared. Lillian spent her time reviewing accounts and avoiding every room she knew Adrian might be in. She was good at it now. Avoidance. She knew his patterns, his habits, the places he retreated to when the world got too loud. She moved around him like water around stone, never touching, never colliding. It should have felt like freedom. Instead, it felt like drowning. Mrs. Hewitt found her in the morning room, staring out at the rain. "Your Grace." Lillian didn't turn around. "What is it?" "His Grace has requested your presence in the study." "Tell him I'm busy." "He said it's important. Everything's important to him when it's convenient." Mrs. Hewitt didn't respond, but she didn't leave either. Lillian sighed. "Fine, I'll go." The study was dark when she entered, just a single lamp burning on the desk. Adrian stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back, watching the rain. "You wanted to see me," Lillian said. He didn't turn around. "I'm leaving tomorrow." Her stomach dropped. "What?" "London. There are matters that require my attention. I'll be gone for 2 weeks, possibly 3. "You're running away." "I'm fulfilling my obligations." "To everyone except me." Adrian's shoulders tensed. This isn't about you." Everything is about me. Lillian moved closer, anger overriding caution. You can't stand being in the same house as me anymore, so you're fleeing to London. Don't pretend this is about business. It is business. You're a liar. He turned then, and the look on his face stopped her cold. He looked broken, like a man who'd been fighting a war inside himself and finally lost. Yes, he said quietly. I am. I've been lying to you since the day we met, about what I wanted, about what I could give you, about everything. Lillian's breath caught. Then tell me the truth. The truth is I'm terrified of you. Of me? Of what you make me feel. His voice was raw. Every time I'm near you, I want things I can't have, things I don't deserve, and I don't know how to want something without destroying it. So instead you destroy us by doing nothing. Yes. The admission hung between them like a confession. Lillian closed her eyes. I can't do this anymore. I know. When you come back from London, I'm leaving. Adrian went very still. Where will you go? I don't know. My parents, maybe, or somewhere else. It doesn't matter. I just can't stay here and watch you kill yourself trying to avoid me. Lillian, no. She held up a hand. You've had 6 months to figure this out. I'm done waiting. She turned to leave. What if I asked you to stay? Lillian stopped, hand on the door. Why would you? Because losing you terrifies me more than anything else. She looked back at him. His face was naked, stripped of all defenses. Then prove it, she said. Not with words, with actions. Show me that I'm worth fighting for. How? I don't know, but you'd better figure it out before you come back. She left him standing there in the dark. Adrian left for London the next morning. Lillian watched from her window as his carriage rolled down the drive and disappeared into the mist. She felt nothing, just a hollow, aching absence where anger used to be. She threw herself into work with manic energy, rode out to inspect the far fields despite the mud, reorganized the entire household schedule, started plans for winter preparations, even though it was still early autumn. Anything to avoid thinking, Peter noticed. You're going to work yourself to death. Good. That's not funny. It wasn't a joke. He grabbed Ash's reins before Lillian could mount. Stop. Let go. No, not until you talk to me. Lillian glared at him. There's nothing to talk about. You're leaving. How did you I listen. The servants talk. Everyone knows. Lillian's shoulders sagged. I have to. Why? Because staying is killing me. The words came out quiet, defeated. I can't keep loving someone who won't love me back. Peter's eyes widened. You love him? Lillian hadn't meant to say it, but now that it was out, she couldn't take it back. Yes, she whispered. I love him. I've probably loved him since the first time he actually looked at me. And that's the worst part, because it doesn't matter. Love isn't enough when the other person won't let you in. Have you told him? What difference would it make? Maybe all the difference. Lillian shook her head. He knows. Or he should. I've shown him in every way I can. If that's not enough, then words won't help. Peter released the reins. Then I hope he figures it out before it's too late. So do I. But she didn't believe it. Until Adrian came back after 2 weeks. Lillian heard the carriage arrive late in the evening. She was in her room, packing. Not everything, just the essentials, things she'd need for travel. She waited for him to come find her. He didn't. An hour passed, then 2. Finally, Lillian walked down to the study. He was there, sitting at his desk, staring at a stack of papers without reading them. You're back, she said. He looked up. There were shadows under his eyes, and he looked thinner than before, like he hadn't been eating. I'm back. Did you finish your business? Yes? Good. Silence. Lillian forced herself to say it. I meant what I said. I'm leaving. I know. When do you want me gone? Adrian flinched. I don't want you gone at all. But you won't ask me to stay. He stood, agitated. I don't know how to do this, how to be what you need. I went to London thinking I'd figure it out, but all I did was realize how empty everything is without you. The house, the work, All of it. That's not enough, Adrian. What do you want from me? Everything, the word tore out of her. I want all of you, not the careful, controlled version you show the world, not the man who hides behind walls and rules and fear. I want the person underneath all that, the one who's terrified and broken and human. I want you to trust me with that. But you won't. I can't. You mean you won't? It's the same thing. No, it's not. Lillian was shaking now. Can't means it's impossible. Won't means you're choosing not to. And every day you choose fear over me. Adrian's face crumbled. Because everyone I've ever trusted has left me. I'm not them. How do I know that? You don't. She was crying now, angry tears streaming down her face. That's what trust is, taking the risk anyway, believing that maybe, just maybe, this time will be different. And if it's not, then we both hurt. But at least we'll have tried. Adrian stared at her. I don't know if I can survive losing you. You're already losing me, right now, this second. Can't you see that? He could. She saw it in his eyes, the moment the truth hit him, the realization that his fear of loss was creating the exact thing he was afraid of. Don't go, he whispered. Give me a reason to stay. His voice broke. I don't have one, not a good one, just, please. Lillian closed her eyes, felt her heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. That's not enough, she said again. I'm sorry, but it's not. She turned to leave, and that's when Adrian did something he'd never done before. He crossed the room in 3 strides, grabbed her hand and pulled her back. Not gently, not carefully, with desperation. Don't, he said. His voice was ragged, broken. Please don't leave. I know I don't deserve you. I know I've been a coward and a fool and everything you've accused me of. But I can't lose you. Not like this. Lillian tried to pull away. Adrian, I love you. The words hit like lightning. Lillian froze. What? I love you. He was shaking, his grip on her hand almost painful. I've loved you since you stood in that dining room and refused to be invisible. Since you rebuilt this estate and made it a home. Since you looked at me like I was worth saving even when I wasn't. And I'm terrified because I don't know how to love someone without destroying them. But I'm more terrified of living without you. Lillian stared at him, at the tears streaming down his face, at the complete and utter collapse of every defense he'd spent years building. You love me, she repeated. Yes. Then why didn't you say it before? Because I'm a coward. Yes, you are. Adrian laughed, a broken, desperate sound. I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me, but please, give me another chance. Let me prove that I can change. I've given you 6 months of chances. I know, and I wasted all of them. But this time I swear. Swearing doesn't mean anything if you don't follow through. Then test me, push me, make me prove it every single day. I don't care, just don't leave. Lillian looked at their joined hands, at his white knuckles and her trembling fingers. Every logical part of her screamed to walk away, to protect herself, to stop gambling on a man who'd shown her nothing but absence. But there was another part, smaller, quieter, more dangerous, that whispered, what if? What if he meant it this time? What if love could actually break through fear? What if staying was braver than leaving? If I stay, she said quietly, things change, completely. No more running, no more hiding. You talk to me, you let me in, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Yes. And if you pull away again, if you retreat into that fortress you've built, I'm gone. For good. No second chances. I understand. Do you? Because I mean it, Adrian. I can't survive another 6 months of this. I know. He pulled her closer until they were inches apart. I won't let it happen again. How can I trust that? You can't, not yet, but I'll earn it every day for as long as it takes. Lillian searched his face, looking for the lie, the crack that would prove this was just another empty promise. She didn't find one. What she found was raw, terrified honesty, a man who'd finally run out of places to hide. One chance, she said. That's all you get. That's all I need. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle or romantic or anything like the stories said it should be. It was desperate and messy and tasted like tears, like 6 months of longing compressed into a single moment. Lillian kissed him back and felt something inside her chest, something that had been locked tight for months, finally crack open. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. "I'm going to mess this up," he whispered. "Probably. But I'll try. I promise I'll try. That's all I'm asking." They stood there in the study, holding each other like drowning people clinging to wreckage. And for the first time since the wedding, Lillian felt like maybe they had a chance. It wasn't certainty, it wasn't safety, but it was something. The next morning, Adrian appeared at breakfast. Not in the formal dining room, in the morning room where Lillian had been eating alone for months. He sat across from her, awkward and uncertain, like he didn't know what to do with his hands. "Good morning," he said. Lillian looked up from her tea. "Good morning. May I join you?" "You're already sitting." "Right, yes." He cleared his throat. "I meant, is this all right, me being here? It's a start." They ate in silence for a few minutes. Not the comfortable kind, the kind where both people are trying to figure out what to say and coming up empty. Finally, Adrian spoke. "Tell me about the harvest. What do you want to know?" "Everything. How it went, what problems came up, what Davies did, what you did." He met her eyes. "I want to know what I've been missing." So Lillian told him about the wheat yields and the issues with the North Field, about the tenant who'd fallen ill and how they'd reorganized the work crews to compensate, about the new storage system she'd implemented and the repairs needed before winter. Adrian listened, actually listened, asked questions, offered suggestions that showed he'd been paying more attention than she'd realized. It felt strange. Good strange. Like talking to a partner instead of a wall. When breakfast ended, Adrian stood. "I have work to do, but would you have dinner with me tonight? Here, just us." "Yes," Lillian said. "I'd like that." He smiled, small, uncertain, but real. "Good." He left. Lillian sat in the morning room, staring at her half-finished tea, and felt something she hadn't felt in months. Hope. Adrian showed up to dinner, and the next night, and the next. At first it was awkward, long silences punctuated by stilted conversation. But slowly, painfully, they found their rhythm. Adrian asked about her day. Lillian asked about his work. They discussed the estate, the tenants, plans for winter. Small things. Normal things. It felt monumental. 2 weeks in, Adrian said, "I spoke to my brother." Lillian looked up, surprised. He'd mentioned his brother exactly once, the night he'd confessed his fear of abandonment. "What happened?" "We argued, years ago. I pushed him away because I thought..." He stopped. "It doesn't matter. I wrote to him, apologized. I don't know if he'll respond." "That was brave." "It was overdue." Adrian set down his fork. "You were right. About everything. I've spent so long protecting myself that I forgot how to live. But I'm trying to change that." "I can see that. Is it enough?" Lillian considered. "It's a start. What else do I need to do?" "Keep showing up, keep trying, keep being honest with me, even when it's hard." "I can do that." "Can you?" "I have to." His voice was quiet but firm. "Because the alternative is losing you, and I can't survive that." Lillian reached across the table, took his hand. Adrian stared at their joined fingers like he couldn't quite believe it was real. "This terrifies me," he admitted. "Me too. But you're still here. So are you." They sat like that for a long moment, hands clasped across the table, two broken people learning how to be whole together. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was theirs. October arrived cold and bright. The estate settled into autumn rhythms, harvesting the last crops, preparing for winter, securing the buildings against storms. Lillian and Adrian fell into a routine. Breakfast together. Separate work during the day. Dinner in the evening. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they just existed in the same space, reading or working in comfortable silence. It was normal. Lillian hadn't realized how much she'd craved normal until she had it. But underneath the calm surface, she could feel Adrian struggling, saw it in the way his hands clenched when she asked about his past, and how he sometimes retreated mid-conversation, eyes going distant, in the careful way he touched her, like she might shatter. He was trying, but the fear was still there, coiled tight beneath his ribs. One night, Lillian woke to find his side of the bed empty. They'd been sharing a room for 3 weeks now. Nothing physical beyond sleeping in the same space. They were both too fragile for more, but the proximity helped, made the intimacy less terrifying, usually. Lillian found him in the library, standing by the window in the dark. "Adrian?" He didn't turn. "Go back to bed." "Not until you tell me what's wrong." "Nothing's wrong." "You're lying again." His shoulders tensed. "I had a nightmare." Lillian moved closer. "About what? You leaving? And me being too late to stop you." "I'm not leaving. Not now. But eventually, Adrian." She touched his arm. "Look at me." He did. His face was haggard, eyes red-rimmed. "I'm not going anywhere," Lillian said firmly, "unless you push me away again. And even then, I'll fight you on it." "How can you be sure?" "Because I choose to be. Every day I choose this. Choose us. That's what commitment is." "But what if I mess up?" "Then we'll deal with it, together. I don't deserve—" "Stop." Lillian's voice was sharp. "Stop deciding what you deserve. That's not your choice. It's mine, and I choose you, broken parts and all." Adrian's eyes filled with tears. "I don't know how to accept that." "Then learn, just like you're learning everything else." She pulled him close. He resisted for a moment, then collapsed into her, shaking. They stood in the dark library holding each other, and Lillian felt his fear like a living thing between them. But she also felt his grip tighten, felt him choosing to stay instead of run. Progress. Small, painful, terrifying progress. The breaking point came in November. Adrian's brother responded to his letter, not with forgiveness, with fury. A 3-page missive detailing every hurt, every betrayal, every moment Adrian had chosen pride over family. Lillian found Adrian in the study, letter crumpled in his fist, face ashen. "He hates me," Adrian said flatly. "What happened?" "Everything. I ruined everything." He looked at her, eyes hollow. "He's right. About all of it. I destroyed our relationship because I was too afraid to be vulnerable. And now it's too late." "It's not too late." "You didn't read the letter." "I don't need to. I know what it's like to want to hurt someone who hurt you first. But hate and pain aren't the same thing. If he didn't care, he wouldn't have responded at all. He wants nothing to do with me. Right now, that might change. Or it might not." Lillian knelt beside his chair. "Adrian, listen to me. You're going to fail sometimes. You're going to try to fix things and have them blow up in your face. That's part of being human. But you can't let one setback destroy all the progress you've made." "What if this is who I am? Someone who destroys relationships?" "Then you'd still be hiding, but you're not. You're here. You're trying. That's what matters." Adrian's hand shook as he pressed it to his face. "I don't know how to do this." "Yes, you do. You've been doing it for weeks. With you. That's different." "Why?" "Because you—" His voice broke. "Because you see me. The real me. And you haven't run yet." "I'm not going to." "You can't promise that." "Watch me." She kissed him, hard and fierce and full of all the certainty he couldn't find in himself. When they broke apart, Adrian was crying. "I love you," he whispered. "I know. I'm terrified of losing you." "I know that too." "How do you live with that fear?" Lillian smiled sadly. "I choose to believe you're worth the risk." Adrian pulled her close, buried his face in her hair, and finally, let himself believe it too. That night, for the first time since their wedding, Adrian stayed. Not just in the same room, but present, awake, with her. They lay in the darkness, hands clasped between them, neither speaking. The silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full of all the things they'd finally stopped running from. Around 3 in the morning, Adrian whispered, "I need to tell you something." Lillian turned to face him. "What?" "About why I'm like this. Why I can't. Why it's so hard." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do." His grip tightened on her hand. "Because if I don't, you'll never understand, and you deserve to understand." Lillian waited. "My parents died when I was 19, Adrian said. His voice was flat, carefully controlled. "Carriage accident. I was supposed to be with them. I changed my plans at the last minute because I was angry about something stupid. Some argument about a girl, I think. I don't even remember anymore." He paused, breathed. "My brother blamed me. Said if I'd been there, maybe the driver would have taken a different route. Maybe it wouldn't have happened. He was 16 and angry and needed someone to hate, so he chose me." "Adrian, there's more." He cut her off gently. "After they died, I inherited everything. The title, the estate, the responsibility. And I had no idea what I was doing. So I trusted people, asked for help, and they took advantage. My father's business partner embezzled funds. My mother's cousin tried to claim part of the estate. Even the woman I thought I'd marry, she was only there for the title." Lillian's heart ached. When did she leave? When the money ran out? Or when she thought it had? I was 22 and stupid enough to believe she loved me. His laugh was bitter. "By the time I figured out how to actually run the estate, I'd lost my brother, my fortune, and any illusion that people could be trusted." "So you stopped trusting anyone?" "Yes. Including yourself." Adrian went quiet. Then, "Especially myself. Every decision I make feels like it could destroy everything. So I stopped making them. Stopped engaging. Built walls high enough that no one could hurt me again. Until I showed up." "Until you showed up," he agreed. "And you didn't ask permission. Didn't wait for me to let you in. You just started building, fixing things, making this place into something I'd given up on. And it terrified me." "Why?" "Because it worked. Because you proved that someone could care about this place, about me, without wanting something in return. And I didn't know how to accept that." Lillian moved closer until their foreheads touched. "I'm not her. I'm not any of them. I know that now, but knowing and believing are different things." "Then what changed?" "You almost left." His voice cracked. "When I realized you might actually go, that I might lose the only real thing I've had in years. It broke something in me. Or fixed it. I'm still not sure which." Lillian kissed him softly. "Both, maybe." "Maybe." They lay there, breathing in sync until Adrian finally fell asleep. Lillian stayed awake longer, staring at the ceiling, processing everything he'd told her. She understood now. The fear, the distance, the walls. None of it excused his behavior, but it explained it. And more importantly, it showed her that his struggle wasn't about her. It was about ghosts she couldn't fight. All she could do was prove day after day that she was real. And staying, even when it hurt. December came hard and fast. The first snow fell on a Tuesday, blanketing the estate in white silence. Lillian woke to find Adrian already dressed, standing at the window. "We need to check on the tenants," he said without turning around. Lillian sat up. "We? You've been doing it alone for months. I need to start pulling my weight." It was a small thing, but it mattered. They rode out together after breakfast. The cold bit through their coats, and the horse's breath came in white puffs. Adrian was quiet, tense, his jaw tight. "You don't have to do this," Lillian said. "Yes, I do." "Why now?" "Because you were right. I've been absent, from the estate, from the tenants, from everything. If I'm going to change, it has to be complete. No more half measures." They visited 6 families that day. Adrian was stiff and awkward, clearly uncomfortable with the personal interaction. But he tried. Asked about their crops, their children, their needs. Listened to their complaints without dismissing them. The tenants were wary at first. Some hadn't seen their Duke in years. But when they saw him standing next to Lillian, actually present and engaged, something shifted. At the last farm, an older woman named Mrs. Fletcher pulled Lillian aside. "Is he sick?" she whispered. "What? No. Why?" "Because that man hasn't shown his face here in 5 years. Now he's asking about my grandson's cough and whether we have enough firewood. Mrs. Fletcher studied Lillian. That's your doing, isn't it? He's trying to change. Well, Mrs. Fletcher's expression softened. It's about time. On the ride back, Adrian was quiet again, but this time it felt different, less like retreat and more like processing. That was harder than I expected, he said finally. Why? Because they all looked at me like I'd failed them, and they're right. They looked at you like they were surprised. That's not the same thing, isn't it? Lillian pulled her horse alongside his. You can't change the past, Adrian. You can only change what happens next. And today, you showed up. That's what matters. It doesn't feel like enough. It never does, but it's a start. He looked at her, really looked, and something in his expression cracked open. How do you always know what to say? I don't. I'm making this up as I go, same as you. Adrian smiled. It was small and tired, but real. Thank you, he said. For what? For not giving up on me. Lillian's throat tightened. Thank you for not letting me. The next challenge came from an unexpected source, Mrs. Hewitt. Lillian found the housekeeper waiting in her room one evening, hands folded, expression severe. We need to discuss the household arrangements, Mrs. Hewitt said. What about them? His Grace has been making changes, overriding my decisions, questioning my authority. Lillian set down her gloves. Such as? He wants to renovate the servants' quarters, increase their wages, hire additional staff, all without consulting me first. And you're opposed? I'm opposed to chaos. These decisions affect the entire household. They should be made systematically, not impulsively. Lillian studied the woman. Mrs. Hewitt had been an obstacle from day one, never hostile, but never helpful, always maintaining that careful professional distance. Why are you really here? Lillian asked. Mrs. Hewitt's composure slipped for just a moment. Because I don't understand what's happening. For 5 years, His Grace barely acknowledged this household existed. Now he's suddenly involved in everything. It's unsettling. Change usually is. Is it permanent? I don't know, Lillian said honestly. He's trying. Whether that lasts, we'll see. And if it doesn't, then we deal with it. But I'm not going to punish him for trying just because he might fail. Mrs. Hewitt's jaw tightened. You care about him? Yes. Why? He's treated you abominably. Lillian smiled sadly. Because people aren't their worst moments, and because someone who's willing to fight their own demons deserves support, not judgment. For a long moment, Mrs. Hewitt said nothing. Then, I've worked for this family for 15 years. I watched His Grace become what he became. I thought it was permanent. It almost was. What changed? He did, or he's trying to. That's all any of us can do. Mrs. Hewitt nodded slowly. Very well, I'll adjust to the new arrangements. Thank you. The housekeeper moved toward the door, then paused. Your Grace, he's lucky to have you. I think we're lucky to have each other. Mrs. Hewitt almost smiled. Perhaps. She left. Lillian sat in the quiet room and felt something shift. She was winning people over. One person at a time, the estate was becoming a home instead of a fortress. But the real battle wasn't with the staff or the tenants. It was still with Adrian himself. Christmas approached, and with it, Adrian's birthday. Lillian discovered this by accident, finding a note in the estate records. December 23rd. He'd be 31. She asked him about it at dinner. Why didn't you tell me? Adrian looked uncomfortable. It's not important. It's your birthday. It's just a day. No, it's not. It's your day, and I'd like to celebrate it. He set down his fork. I don't celebrate it. Why not? Because the last birthday I celebrated was the day before my parents died. I was 19, and we had this elaborate party, and I was angry because they wouldn't let me invite the girl I wanted to bring. I spent the entire evening sulking in a corner, and 2 days later they were dead. Lillian reached across the table. That wasn't your fault. I know that. Logically, I know. But it doesn't change how it feels. What if we made new memories? Nothing elaborate, just something small. For us. Adrian looked at their joined hands. Why does this matter to you? Because you matter to me, and I want you to have good things, happy things, instead of just survival. His eyes filled. I don't know if I remember how to be happy. Then let me remind you. He squeezed her hand. Okay. 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 We can try. Something small. Lillian smiled. Something small. Yeah. She spent the next week planning in secret. Nothing extravagant. Adrian would hate that. Just a quiet dinner, a few gifts, maybe some music. She recruited Peter to help set up the small dining room, the one with the fireplace and the view of the garden. On the morning of his birthday, Adrian woke to find Lillian already dressed. Where are you going? Out. I'll be back this afternoon. Lillian, don't ask, just trust me. He frowned but didn't argue. She spent the day in town, gathering supplies, checking on final details. By the time she returned, the sun was setting and her fingers were numb with cold. The small dining room looked perfect. Candles on the table, fire crackling in the hearth, Adrian's favorite foods prepared by the cook. She'd even found a violin player in town, a young woman who played beautifully. Adrian appeared at 7, as requested. He stopped in the doorway, staring. What is this? Your birthday. Lillian, I know you don't celebrate, but I wanted to give you something worth celebrating. She gestured to the room. It's just us. No pressure, no performance. Just a nice evening. Adrian's throat worked. You did all this? Peter helped. And the cook. And Mrs. Hewitt, actually. Mrs. Hewitt? She's warming to us. Adrian walked into the room slowly, like he was afraid it might disappear. He touched the back of a chair, looked at the table, turned to face her. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just sit, eat, let yourself enjoy something. They ate in comfortable quiet, the violin playing softly in the corner. Halfway through the meal, Adrian reached across the table and took her hand. Thank you, he said quietly. You're welcome. This is the first time in 12 years that my birthday has felt like anything other than an anniversary of failure. Good. Then we're starting a new tradition. What tradition? Making this day about life instead of death. Adrian's grip tightened. I love you. I know. No, I mean, I love you in a way that terrifies me. Because if I lose this, lose you, I don't know if I'd survive it. Lillian moved around the table, sat in his lap, wrapped her arms around him. You're not going to lose me. You can't promise that. Watch me. She kissed him, deep and slow and full of promise. When they broke apart, Adrian was crying again, but this time there was something different in his expression. Not just pain or fear, joy. Small and fragile, but real. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other while the fire burned and the music played and the world outside faded away. For the first time in years, Adrian let himself feel happy, and it didn't destroy him. The next morning, everything shattered. Lillian woke to shouting. She threw on a robe and ran downstairs to find Adrian in the entrance hall, facing a tall man with dark hair and cold eyes. His brother. You have no right to be here, Adrian was saying. I have every right. This is my family's estate, too. You gave up that right when you left. You pushed me out. Lillian stepped forward. What's going on? The brother turned to her. Up close, she could see the resemblance. Same sharp features, same dark eyes. But where Adrian's expression was guarded, this man's was openly hostile. You must be the Duchess, he said. I'm Marcus, the forgotten brother. Not forgotten, Adrian said tightly, just absent. By choice or necessity? That's not fair. Nothing about this family has ever been fair. Marcus turned back to Lillian. Did he tell you why I left? What he did? Marcus, Adrian's voice was a warning. He chose pride over family, refused to admit he was struggling, pushed away everyone who tried to help, and when I couldn't watch him destroy himself anymore, he let me go without a fight. That's not how it happened, Adrian said. Isn't it? You stood there and watched me pack, didn't say a word, just let me leave. Because you wanted to go. I wanted you to ask me to stay. Marcus's composure cracked. I was 16 years old. I just lost our parents. I needed my brother. And you gave me nothing, no comfort, no support, just silence and duty. Adrian's face had gone white. I didn't know how You didn't try. The words hung in the air like an indictment. Lillian could see Adrian struggling, see the guilt and shame and old wounds tearing open. She moved to his side, took his hand. Why are you here now? She asked Marcus. Because I got his letter, his pathetic attempt at an apology. And I realized he hasn't changed at all. He's still the same coward who chose isolation over family. That's not true, Lillian said firmly. Marcus laughed. You've known him for what, a year? I've known him my entire life. Trust me, he doesn't change. He just gets better at hiding. You're wrong. Am I? Then where was he for the last 12 years? Where was the brother who was supposed to help me when our parents died? Where was he when I needed him? Where were you? Adrian's voice was quiet but sharp. You left. You chose to go. I didn't force you. You didn't stop me. Because you made it clear you hated me. I was a child. So was I. Adrian's control finally broke. I was 19 years old, Marcus. I'd just lost our parents. I had an estate I didn't know how to run, debts I didn't know about, and a brother who looked at me like I'd killed them myself. What was I supposed to do? Be my brother, that's all. Just be there. I tried. No, you didn't. You locked yourself away and pretended the world didn't exist. You always do that. When things get hard, you disappear. Marcus looked at Lillian. Ask her. I bet he's done it to you too. Lillian's grip on Adrian's hand tightened. He's trying to change. People don't change. They just find new ways to disappoint you. That's not enough. Adrian's voice was cold. You came here to hurt me. Congratulations. You've succeeded. Now leave. Adrian? Lillian started. Leave, Adrian repeated. He pulled his hand free from Lillian's and walked away. Marcus watched him go, something flickering in his expression. Regret, maybe, or vindication. You should go, Lillian said quietly. He'll break your heart, Marcus said. It's what he does. He'll let you in just enough to make you hope, then disappear when it matters most. You don't know him anymore. I know him better than anyone, including you. Marcus moved toward the door. When it happens, when he runs, remember that I warned you. He left. Lillian stood in the empty hall, shaking. She found Adrian in the study, standing by the window, rigid as stone. Adrian? He's right. What? About everything. I failed him. I failed our parents. I failed everyone I've ever... His voice broke. I can't do this. Can't do what? This, us, any of it. He turned to face her. His eyes were wild, desperate. Every time I try to fix things, they get worse. My brother hates me. The estate was falling apart. I hurt you. I hurt everyone. Maybe Marcus is right. Maybe I don't change. Maybe I just destroy things. That's not true, isn't it? He laughed bitterly. Look at what happened. I tried to apologize and he showed up angrier than before. I tried to celebrate my birthday and the next morning my past comes back to destroy me. Every time I take a step forward, something drags me back. So you're going to run again. The words were sharp, accusatory. Adrian flinched. I don't know. Yes, you do. That's what you always do. Things get hard and you disappear. Marcus was right about that much. Then maybe you should leave too, before I destroy you like I've destroyed everything else. Lillian's hands clenched into fists. Is that what you want? I want you to be safe. From me. From this. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. Lillian felt something inside her chest crack wide open. All the progress they'd made, all the trust they'd built, crumbling in real time. I can't do this again, she whispered. I know. I've given you everything. My time, my patience, my heart. I've watched you struggle and supported you through it. I stayed when anyone else would have left. And you're still looking for excuses to push me away. I'm not. Yes, you are. Your brother shows up and says cruel things, and instead of fighting for what we've built, you're using it as proof that you're broken. You're choosing his version of you over mine. Adrian's face crumbled, because his version is true. No, it's not. It's old. It's who you were, not who you are now. You don't know that. Yes, I do, because I've seen you change. I've watched you try. I've felt you fighting your own fear every single day. That's not the man your brother described. That's someone brave enough to want something better. I don't feel brave. I feel terrified. Good. That means it matters. They stared at each other across the study. Two people on the edge of either breakthrough or collapse, neither knowing which way they'd fall. Finally, Adrian spoke. What if I can't do this? What if I'm too broken? Then we'll be broken together, but you have to choose that. Choose me. Choose us. Right now. Lillian, no more excuses, no more fear. Either you want this or you don't, but I need you to decide. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Adrian's hands were shaking. His breath came fast and shallow. Every instinct he had screamed at him to run, to protect himself, to disappear before the pain got worse. But Lillian stood there, looking at him with those fierce, unwavering eyes, and he realized something. Running from her was the only thing guaranteed to destroy him. Everything else was just fear. I choose you, he whispered. Lillian's breath caught. What? I choose you. I choose this. Even though it terrifies me, even though I'm going to mess it up, I choose you. She crossed the room in 3 steps and grabbed his face. Say it again. I choose you. Again. I choose you, Lillian, every day, every moment, for as long as you'll have me. She kissed him hard, desperate, like she was trying to brand the promise onto his soul. When they broke apart, both were crying. Your brother's wrong, Lillian said fiercely. You're not the same person you were. You're stronger, better, and I'm going to keep reminding you of that until you believe it. It might take a while. I don't care. Adrian pulled her close, buried his face in her hair, and felt something fundamental shift inside him. For the first time in his life, he wasn't choosing safety. He was choosing risk, choosing hope, choosing her. And even though his hands still shook and fear still coiled in his gut, he held on. Because letting go would destroy the only real thing he'd ever had. Outside, snow began to fall again, silent and relentless, covering everything in white. Inside, 2 people held each other in a quiet study and fought for something worth keeping. The war wasn't over. But for the first time, Adrian believed they might actually win. That night they lay in bed, neither sleeping. I need to talk to Marcus again, Adrian said, properly this time. When? Tomorrow, before I lose my nerve. Lillian rolled to face him. What will you say? The truth. That I failed him. That I was too young and too scared to be what he needed. That I'm sorry. He paused. And that I'm trying to be better now, even if he never forgives me. That's brave. It's overdue. They fell quiet again. Lillian could feel the tension radiating off Adrian, the fear of facing his past, of being rejected again. Whatever happens, she said, I'm here. I know. His grip on her hand tightened. That's the only reason I can do this. Do you think he'll listen? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. Adrian's voice was rough. But I have to try because you were right. I've been using fear as an excuse for too long. It's time to stop running. Lillian kissed his shoulder. I'm proud of you. Don't be. Not yet. Not until I actually follow through. I'm proud of you for wanting to try. That's enough. Adrian pulled her closer, and they lay in the darkness, both awake, both afraid, both choosing to face tomorrow anyway. Outside, the wind howled against the windows. Inside, something fragile and precious continued to grow, but neither of them knew that by morning, everything would change again. Because Marcus hadn't left. He was still on the estate, and what he'd found in the old family papers was about to tear apart everything Adrian had spent months building. The morning after everything almost fell apart, Lillian woke to find Adrian already dressed, sitting on the edge of the bed watching her. How long have you been awake? She asked, voice rough with sleep. A while. She sat up, studying his face. He looked tired but steady, like someone who'd survived a storm and was still surprised to be standing. What are you thinking about? She asked. That I almost lost this. He reached for her hand, and how I'm never going to let that happen again. Big promises. I know, but I mean it. He stood, pulling her up with him. Get dressed. There's something I want to show you. 20 minutes later, they were walking through the east wing, the part of the estate that had been closed off since before Lillian arrived. Adrian pushed open a set of heavy doors, revealing a long gallery filled with dust-covered furniture and portraits shrouded in cloth. This was my mother's favorite room, he said quietly. After she died, my father locked it up. Said it hurt too much to see it. I kept it closed because I thought, I don't know, that preserving it somehow preserved her memory. Lillian looked around at the ghostly shapes. What changed? You did. Adrian pulled the cloth off the nearest portrait, revealing a woman with dark hair and kind eyes. My mother would have liked you. She believed people could change if they wanted it badly enough. I never understood that until now. What are you saying? I'm saying it's time to stop living in a tomb. He met her eyes. Help me bring this room back to life. Help me turn this whole place into something that's ours, not just a monument to the past. Lillian felt something warm unfold in her chest. This wasn't just about the room. It was about him choosing to move forward, choosing them over his fear. Where do we start? She asked. Adrian smiled. Anywhere you want. They spent the morning uncovering furniture, cataloging portraits, making lists of repairs needed. It was dusty, exhausting work, but there was something almost sacred about it, like they were excavating not just a room, but Adrian's ability to hope. Peter found them around noon, both covered in dust and cobwebs. Mrs. Hewitt sent me to find you, said you missed breakfast and lunch. He looked around the gallery, eyes wide. I didn't know this room existed. Neither did most people, Adrian said. We're opening it up. What changed? Everything, Lillian said. She caught Adrian's eye, saw him smile. Peter grinned. About damn time. Over the next few weeks, the transformation wasn't just physical. Adrian started joining Lillian on her visits to the tenants. At first he was awkward, too formal, struggling with small talk, but he kept trying. Listened when the farmers talked about their concerns, made notes, started implementing changes. The tenants noticed. More importantly, they started trusting him. One afternoon they were visiting the Hendersons, a family struggling with a failing well, when the father pulled Adrian aside. Your Grace, I want to thank you. Adrian looked uncomfortable with the gratitude. It's just a well. It's not just a well, it's you being here, seeing us as people, not problems to solve from a distance. Henderson glanced at Lillian. The Duchess taught you well. She's still teaching me, Adrian admitted. After they left, Lillian asked, how did that feel? Terrifying. Good. Both. He helped her onto Ash, his hand lingering on her waist. I spent so long avoiding people because I thought connection meant weakness. But standing there, actually helping someone, it felt more powerful than hiding ever did. That's because it is. They rode back to the estate side by side, and Lillian realized something had shifted. Adrian wasn't just going through the motions anymore. He was present, really present, choosing engagement over isolation even when it scared him. It scared him constantly. But he did it anyway. That night at dinner, Mrs. Hewitt appeared with a letter. For you, Your Grace. She handed it to Adrian. From your brother. Adrian's hand froze halfway to the envelope. Lillian saw the fear flash across his face, the instinct to run, to avoid the potential pain. Want me to leave? She asked quietly. No. He took a breath. No, I need you here. He opened the letter, read in silence. His expression didn't change, but Lillian saw his throat work as he swallowed. What does it say? She finally asked. He's coming to visit. Adrian's voice was carefully neutral. Next month. Says he wants to talk, face to face. That's good. Is it? Last time we spoke, we nearly killed each other. You were different people then. What if I'm still that person? What if I say the wrong thing and destroy any chance we have at reconciliation? Lillian reached across the table, covered his hand with hers. Then you'll apologize and try again. That's what people who care about each other do. I don't know if he still cares. He's coming, isn't he? That's not the action of someone who doesn't care. Adrian stared at their joined hands. I'm terrified. I know, but you're also brave enough to face it. How do you know? Because you're still here, still trying. That takes more courage than running ever did. He turned his hand over, laced his fingers through hers. What did I do to deserve you? You didn't deserve me. You chose me. There's a difference. Adrian laughed, actually laughed, and the sound was so unexpected, so genuine that Lillian felt tears prick her eyes. When did you get so wise? He asked. I've always been wise. You just started listening. The winter came hard that year, but Blackmore was ready. The repairs Lillian had pushed for over the summer held firm. The tenants had enough supplies. The house itself felt warmer, more alive, despite the cold pressing against the windows. Adrian and Lillian fell into deeper patterns of partnership. Mornings were spent reviewing estate business together. Afternoons they worked separately but found reasons to check in with each other. Evenings belonged to just them. Dinner, conversation, sometimes just sitting by the fire reading while snow fell outside. The physical distance between them had been closing gradually. A hand on the small of her back. His arm around her shoulders while they looked at plans. Lillian leaning against him while they read. One night in December, Adrian pulled her close on the settee and said, I'm not very good at this. At what? Intimacy, closeness. I want to be, but I don't know how. Lillian turned to face him. You're doing fine. I froze up when you touched my face yesterday. I saw the hurt in your eyes. You were surprised. That's different from rejection. Is it? Yes. She took his hand, placed it against her cheek. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being willing. Are you willing to let me close? I want to be. That's a start. She leaned into his palm. We'll figure out the rest together. Adrian's thumb brushed her cheekbone. I love you. I know. No, I don't think you do. Not fully. His voice was intense. You're the first person who ever made me want to be better instead of just feel worse about myself. Every day with you is proof that I'm capable of more than I believed. You didn't just save this estate, Lillian. You saved me. You saved yourself. I just refused to let you hide while you did it. Same thing. Not even close. He kissed her then, slow and careful and full of everything he was still learning to say with words. Lillian kissed him back, feeling the last of his walls crumble. They made love that night for the first time since the wedding. It was awkward and fumbling and nothing like the romance novels promised. Adrian apologized 3 times. Lillian laughed twice. But underneath the imperfection was something real and raw and theirs. Afterward, lying tangled together in the dark, Adrian said, That was terrible. Lillian snorted. It was not terrible. I had no idea what I was doing. Neither did I. Really? Really? She propped herself up on one elbow. But we'll get better. Practice makes perfect and all that. Adrian pulled her back down against his chest. I like the sound of that. Which part? All of it. He pressed a kiss to her hair. Having a future that includes getting better at things together. I've never had that before. Well, you have it now. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, and for the first time in his life, Adrian didn't have nightmares about abandonment. Adrian's brother arrived on a gray January morning. Lillian watched from the window as the carriage pulled up. A tall man stepped out, similar build to Adrian but lighter coloring, with an edge of barely controlled anger in the way he moved. He looks like you, she said. Adrian stood rigid beside her. He looks like our father. Are you ready? No. Do you want me there? He hesitated. Would you? Of course. They went down together. Adrian's hand was ice cold in hers. The brother, James, Lillian remembered, was waiting in the entrance hall. He looked at Adrian with an expression that could have been fury or pain or both. James, Adrian said. Adrian. The silence stretched between them like a chasm. Thank you for coming, Adrian tried. I almost didn't. James's voice was clipped. Read your letter 5 times, trying to figure out if it was sincere or just another manipulation. It was sincere. Was it? Or did your wife write it for you? Lillian felt Adrian tense beside her. She squeezed his hand. I wrote it, Adrian said quietly. Every word. And I meant them. I'm sorry, James, for everything, for pushing you away, for choosing pride over family, for letting years pass without trying to fix what I broke. You think an apology fixes 7 years of silence? No, but it's a start. James laughed bitterly. A start? That's rich. You left me at our father's funeral, walked away without a word, and now you want to start over? I want to try. Why? Because you suddenly grew a conscience, or because she made you? James gestured at Lillian. Adrian's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed level. Because I was wrong. And because I'm tired of being the person who destroys everything he touches. So this is about you feeling better about yourself? No. This is about me finally understanding what I lost when I pushed you away. James stared at him. Some of the anger in his face cracked, revealing the hurt underneath. You were all I had left, he said quietly. After Father died, you were it. And you left me alone in that house with all his debts and all his expectations and not a single word of support. I know. Do you? Do you have any idea what that felt like? No, but I'm trying to understand. That's not good enough. I know that too. Adrian took a step forward. James, I can't undo the past. I can't give you back those 7 years. All I can do is stand here and ask you to let me try to be the brother you deserved then. I know I don't have the right to ask, but I'm asking anyway. James's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Lillian thought he might actually throw a punch. Instead, his voice broke. I missed you, you bastard. Every single day, I missed you. I missed you too. Then why didn't you come back? Because I was a coward. Because I convinced myself you were better off without me. Because I didn't know how to fix what I'd broken. Adrian's voice was raw. But I'm here now, and if you'll let me, I want to try. James wiped at his eyes angrily. I should tell you to go to hell. You'd be justified. I should walk out that door and never look back. I'd understand. Stop being so damn reasonable. I want to hate you. I know. James let out a shaky breath. I can't promise I'll forgive you. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just a chance. They stood there, two brothers separated by years of hurt and pride, with an ocean of unsaid things between them. Finally, James nodded. Fine, one chance, but if you disappear again, I won't. How can I trust that? Lillian spoke for the first time. Because he's not the same person who left you, and because I won't let him run away from the people who matter. James looked at her, really looked, for the first time. You must be something special to have changed him this much. I'm stubborn. Clearly, a ghost of a smile touched his face. All right, let's try this. But I'm still angry. Fair enough, Adrian said. And you're going to have to work for this. No shortcuts. I know. And I reserve the right to punch you if you say something stupid. Also fair. James shook his head. You really have changed. I'm trying to. They moved into the study, the three of them, and spent the next hour talking. It wasn't easy. James brought up every hurt, every moment of abandonment. Adrian listened without defending himself, apologized without making excuses, took responsibility for all of it. Lillian watched them navigate the minefield of their shared past and felt something shift. This was what healing looked like, messy and painful and imperfect, but real. When James finally stood to leave, he said, All right, not often, maybe, but all right. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just don't make me regret this. After he left, Adrian collapsed into a chair like his strings had been cut. That was the hardest thing I've ever done, he said. You did well. I thought he was going to hit me. So did I. Would you have stopped him? Lillian considered. Probably not. Kind of deserved it. Adrian laughed weakly. Fair point. He pulled her into his lap, buried his face in her shoulder. Thank you for being there. Where else would I be? I don't know, but I'm grateful anyway. They sat there while the fire burned low, holding each other, and Lillian felt the last piece of Adrian's armor finally crack and fall away. The estate changed as spring approached. Not just physically, though the improvements were obvious. Repaired buildings, productive fields, well-maintained grounds. The real change was in the people. The tenants stopped seeing the Duke as a distant figure and started seeing him as someone who cared. The staff relaxed their careful formality around both Adrian and Lillian. Even Mrs. Hewitt cracked a smile occasionally. One afternoon in March, Lillian was in the village settling a dispute about property boundaries when one of the farmers said, "Begging your pardon, Your Grace, but we wanted to thank you." For what? For making this place feel like home again. It's been dead here for years. But you and His Grace, you brought it back to life. Lillian felt her throat tighten. "We're just doing what needed to be done." "No, ma'am. You're doing more than that. You're making us believe things can be better." The farmer gestured around at the others who'd gathered. "That's worth more than any repair or improvement." When she told Adrian about it later, he was quiet for a long moment. "I never thought I'd hear something like that about me," he finally said. "Why not?" "Because I spent so long being the exact opposite of what they needed. I was the Duke who signed papers and stayed away, who treated people like obligations instead of human beings. And now? Now I'm trying to be someone worth their trust." He looked at her. "Someone worth yours." "You already are." "Am I?" "Yes. Not because you're perfect. You're not. But because you keep trying even when it terrifies you. That's the person I fell in love with." Adrian kissed her softly. "I fall more in love with you every day." "Good. That was the plan." "Was it?" "Absolutely. Seduce you with competence and stubbornness until you couldn't imagine life without me." "Diabolical." "Effective." He laughed and pulled her close, and Lillian felt the warmth of it down to her bones. This was what she'd fought for. Not perfection, not some fairy tale ending. Just this, a partnership built on honesty and effort and choosing each other every single day. In April, Lillian realized she was pregnant. She sat in the morning room with the knowledge sitting heavy and bright in her chest, trying to figure out how to tell Adrian. They hadn't discussed children, hadn't planned for this. But now that it was real, Lillian found she wanted it desperately. She found him in the library, reviewing ledgers. "I need to tell you something," she said. He looked up immediately, concern flickering across his face. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, at least, I don't think it is." She sat beside him. "I'm pregnant." Adrian went absolutely still. "You're... what?" "Pregnant. I saw the doctor this morning. He confirmed it. We're having a baby." "Yes." He stared at her like she'd just announced the sky was falling. Then, slowly, his expression transformed into something Lillian had never seen before. Pure, unfiltered joy. "We're having a baby," he repeated, wonder in his voice. "Are you happy?" "Happy? He pulled her into his arms. "I'm terrified and thrilled and completely overwhelmed. Is that normal?" "I think so. I don't know how to be a father." "You didn't know how to be a husband either. Look how that turned out." Adrian laughed shakily. "Point taken." He pulled back to look at her. "Are you all right? Do you need anything? Should you be sitting? Standing? What?" "Adrian, breathe." He took a breath. "Right. Yes, breathing is good." "I'm fine. The doctor said everything looks normal, but we have about 6 months to figure out how to be parents." "And 6 months? That's not nearly enough time." "It'll have to be." He pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you. Both of you." "We love you too." They sat there in the library, surrounded by books and dust motes dancing in afternoon light, and Lillian felt the future stretch out before them, uncertain and terrifying and full of possibility. That evening, they told the household. Mrs. Hewitt actually smiled, a real warm smile that transformed her entire face. "Congratulations, Your Graces. This house could use some life in it." Peter whooped and immediately started planning a nursery in the East Wing. The cook began talking about special meals for Lillian's health. The news spread through the estate like wildfire. The next morning, tenants started appearing at the house with gifts, hand-carved toys, baby blankets, preserves and herbs meant to help with pregnancy, small tokens of support from people who'd learned to care about their Duke and Duchess. Adrian stood in the entrance hall, surrounded by offerings, looking stunned. "I don't understand," he said. "What's not to understand?" Lillian asked. "Why they care. We're just doing our jobs." "No. You're being part of their community. That's different." One of the tenant farmers, an older man named Samuel, stepped forward. "Your Grace, if I may." "Of course." "My grandchildren will grow up in a different Blackmore than I did. One where the Duke knows their names, where the Duchess visits when they're sick, where the estate feels like it belongs to all of us, not just the people in the big house. He smiled. That's worth celebrating. Adrian's voice was rough when he spoke. Thank you, all of you, for your kindness, for your trust, for giving me a chance to be better than I was. You've already earned it, Your Grace, Samuel said. Now you just have to keep being the man you've become. After everyone left, Adrian found Lillian in the garden. I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, he admitted. What do you mean? For something to go wrong, for me to mess this up, for everything we've built to fall apart. It won't. How do you know? Because we won't let it. She took his hand, placed it on her still flat stomach. This is ours, Adrian. Our family. Our future. And yes, it's terrifying, but it's also real and worth fighting for. Adrian's hand trembled against her. I'm going to be a terrible father. Probably sometimes. I'll probably be a terrible mother sometimes too, but we'll figure it out together. Promise? Promise. He kissed her there in the garden, surrounded by new growth and spring air, and for the first time since the wedding, Adrian truly believed they had a future worth building. The fear was still there. It probably always would be. But now there was something stronger beside it, hope. And that made all the difference. The fever broke on the third day. Lillian woke to find Adrian asleep in the chair beside the bed, his hand still wrapped around hers. His face was gaunt, shadowed with exhaustion, but he was breathing steadily. The crisis had passed. She squeezed his fingers. His eyes opened immediately, unfocused for a moment before landing on her face. Then something in his expression shifted, relief so profound it looked like pain. You're awake. How long was I out? 3 days. The doctor said. His voice cracked. He said it could go either way. Lillian tried to sit up. Her body protested, weak and shaky. Adrian was there instantly, helping her, adjusting pillows, his movements careful but desperate. I thought I lost you, he whispered. I'm still here. I know. He pressed his forehead to her shoulder. I can't do that again. I can't watch you almost die and not be able to do anything. Then maybe stop locking me in rooms. Adrian pulled back, stricken. That's not funny. It's a little funny. Lillian. Adrian. She touched his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. I'm fine. I'm here, and I'm not angry. You should be. Probably. But I'm too tired. She studied him. You look terrible. I haven't slept. Go to bed. I'm not leaving you. Then sleep here. He hesitated, then climbed onto the bed beside her, still fully dressed, and pulled her carefully into his arms. Lillian rested her head on his chest and felt his heartbeat, steady, strong, alive. I'm sorry, he murmured into her hair. I know. I panicked. I thought if I could just keep you here, make you listen. I would have listened anyway. You didn't have to trap me. I didn't know that. All I knew was that you were leaving, and I couldn't let that happen. Lillian closed her eyes. We're a mess. Yes, but we're trying. Yes. Is that enough? Adrian's arms tightened around her. It has to be. They fell asleep like that, tangled together, broken and healing, refusing to let go. Recovery was slow. Lillian spent 2 weeks confined to bed, then another week moving around the estate like a ghost, pale and shaky. Adrian hovered constantly, driving her half mad with concern. I'm fine, she snapped one afternoon when he tried to carry her up the stairs. You're not fine. You nearly died. 3 weeks ago. I'm walking now. See? She demonstrated by climbing 3 steps, then had to stop and catch her breath. Adrian said nothing, just picked her up and carried her the rest of the way. Lillian wanted to argue. Instead, she leaned into his chest and let herself be carried. Progress looked different than she'd expected. Less grand gestures, more quiet surrender. Peter visited daily, bringing reports from the estate. The work had continued without her. Adrian had stepped in, taken over, actually talked to the tenants. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. People are saying he's changed, Peter told her one afternoon. Has he? You tell me. You see him more than anyone. Lillian thought about it. About the man who slept beside her now, who woke from nightmares and stayed instead of running, who argued with her about estate management and listened when she pushed back, who was still terrified but showed up anyway. "Yes," she said. "He has." "Good, because I like you alive, and I don't think you'd survive leaving him now." "Why not?" Peter gave her a look. "Because you love him too much." Lillian didn't deny it. By December, she was strong enough to ride again. She took Ash out on a cold, clear morning, Adrian riding beside her on his black stallion. They didn't talk much, just moved through the frost-covered fields in comfortable silence. When they reached the ridge overlooking the estate, Lillian pulled Ash to a stop. "Look at it," she said. Adrian followed her gaze. Blackmore spread below them, the main house, the tenant farms, the orchards, the fields. Smoke rose from chimneys. People moved between buildings. It looked alive. "You did this," Adrian said quietly. "We did this." "No, this was you. I just stopped getting in the way." Lillian turned to him. "Do you regret it? Marrying me?" Adrian's eyes widened. "What? No. Why would you?" "Because you fought it so hard, for so long. I need to know if you wish things had been different." He was quiet for a moment, considering. Then, "I regret how I handled it, how I hurt you, how much time I wasted being afraid. But marrying you?" He shook his head. "That's the only thing I've ever done right." Lillian felt her throat tighten. "Even with all the fighting? Especially with the fighting. You didn't let me hide. You forced me to be better. I hated it at the time, but..." He smiled slightly. "I needed it." "You needed someone to yell at you?" "I needed someone who cared enough to yell at me." They sat on their horses, looking at each other across the space between them. "I love you," Lillian said, in case that wasn't clear. "It's becoming clear." Adrian's smile widened. "Slowly. How long before you believe it?" "Ask me in 50 years. Lillian laughed. The sound echoed across the fields, bright and free. They rode back to the house together, side by side. Christmas came quietly. No grand celebrations, just Lillian and Adrian and a small gathering of staff in the main hall. Mrs. Hewitt had unbent enough to smile when Lillian complimented the decorations. Peter got drunk on mulled wine and serenaded Ash in the stables. Even Davies cracked a joke. It felt like family. Adrian found Lillian in the library that evening, staring into the fire. "You're thinking," he said, "always dangerous." He sat beside her. "What about? How different this is from last year." "Last year you were alone." "So were you." Adrian nodded slowly. "I was. I didn't even notice it until you arrived." "And now?" "Now the house feels too small sometimes." He smiled. "In a good way." Lillian leaned against his shoulder. "I never thought I'd be happy here." "Are you? Happy?" She considered. "Yes. Terrified and exhausted and constantly worried you'll revert to being a statue. But yes, happy. That's a qualified happiness. It's an honest one." Adrian kissed the top of her head. "I'll take it." They sat in silence, watching the fire burn down to embers. "I got you something," Adrian said eventually. "We agreed no gifts." "I lied." He pulled a small box from his pocket. Inside was a ring, simple gold, with a single dark stone. "It was my mother's," Adrian said quietly. "The only thing I kept after she died. I want you to have it." Lillian stared at the ring. "Adrian, you don't have to wear it. I wanted you to know that you're not just my wife. You're family. The only family I have left." Lillian's eyes burned. She took the ring, slid it onto her finger beside her wedding band. It fit perfectly. "Thank you," she whispered. Adrian pulled her close, and they stayed like that until the fire went out and the room grew cold. But neither of them moved. Neither of them wanted to. The new year brought a letter. Adrian's brother, Marcus, had written again. Not an apology, but an acknowledgement, a willingness to talk. Adrian stared at the letter for an hour before showing it to Lillian. What do I do? What do you want to do? I want to fix it, but I don't know if that's possible. Only one way to find out. Adrian wrote back that same day. The correspondence continued, slow, careful, full of years of hurt that couldn't be resolved in a few pages. But it was something. He wants to visit, Adrian told Lillian in March. In the summer. What did you say? I said yes. Was that... Should I have asked you first? Lillian smiled. It's your brother. Of course you should see him. I'm nervous. Good. That means you care. Adrian pulled her into his arms. I care about a lot of things now. You taught me that. I didn't teach you anything. You were always capable of it. Maybe. But you made me want to try. Os. Spring exploded across Blackmore in riots of color. The orchards bloomed white and pink. The fields turned green. The estate hummed with life and work and purpose. Lillian stood in the garden one April morning, hands dirty from planting, and realized she couldn't remember the last time she'd felt trapped. The estate that had once been a prison now felt like possibility. Adrian found her there, covered in soil, laughing at something Peter had said. What's funny? Peter just told me I look like a farmer's wife. You do? Is that a compliment? From me? Yes. Lillian grinned and wiped a streak of dirt across his cheek. Adrian didn't even flinch, just pulled her close and kissed her, mud and all. Peter made a gagging noise. That's disgusting. You're disgusting, Lillian shot back. I'm 19, I'm supposed to be disgusting. Adrian laughed. Actually laughed. A sound Lillian had heard maybe 5 times in their entire marriage. Go find something useful to do, Adrian told Peter. I'm supervising. Supervising what? You two, making sure you don't do anything embarrassing. Too late, Lillian said, and kissed Adrian again. Peter left, muttering about propriety and nobility and how nobody appreciated him. Adrian pulled back, studying Lillian's face. You're happy. Yes. Genuinely? Yes, Adrian. Genuinely, completely, terrifyingly happy. Terrifying. Because I keep waiting for something to go wrong. His expression sobered. So do I. But it hasn't yet. No, it hasn't. They stood in the garden, covered in dirt and spring sunshine, and let themselves believe it might actually last. Marcus arrived in July. Lillian watched from the window as Adrian greeted his brother in the courtyard. The 2 men stood facing each other, tense and uncertain, before Marcus extended his hand. Adrian took it. It wasn't a hug. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a start. Dinner that night was awkward. Long pauses, careful conversations, years of hurt sitting heavy between them. But Marcus stayed for 3 days, and by the end, he and Adrian were actually talking. Not about the past, but about the present, about the estate, about Lillian, about small, safe things that slowly built a bridge. On the last morning, Marcus found Lillian in the library. Thank you, he said. For what? For saving him. He wrote to me about what happened, how you almost left, how he locked you in. He said you should have walked away, but you stayed. He was worth staying for. Marcus smiled sadly. I didn't think so. For years I thought he was exactly what he appeared to be, cold, distant, incapable of caring. But you saw something I didn't. I saw someone who was scared, that's all. That's everything. Marcus hesitated. I don't know if Adrian and I will ever be what we were, but I'm willing to try. Because of you. Don't give me too much credit. I'll give you exactly the credit you deserve. He paused. Take care of him. I plan to. Marcus left that afternoon. Adrian watched his carriage disappear down the drive, then turned to Lillian. I thought that would be harder. Did it help? Yes. I don't know if we'll ever be close again, but it's not finished. That's something. Lillian took his hand. It's everything. Summer blazed hot and long. The estate thrived. The harvest came in heavy. The tenants prospered. Blackmore had transformed from a cold, silent fortress into something living and warm. Lillian stood in the main hall one evening, watching the staff prepare for a dinner party, the first they'd hosted since the wedding. Lord Garrett was coming, along with several neighboring families. It should have terrified her. Instead, she felt calm. "You're not nervous?" Adrian asked, appearing at her elbow. "Should I be? You're about to feed and entertain 20 people. I've handled worse." "Like me?" Lillian smiled. "Exactly like you." The party was a success. Garrett arrived full of charm and congratulations, genuinely delighted to see them happy. The neighbors were curious but kind. And Adrian actually talked to people, made conversation, laughed at jokes. Lillian watched him from across the room and felt something settle in her chest. He wasn't perfect. He still struggled sometimes, still retreated when overwhelmed. But he came back. Always came back. Later, when the guests had left and the house had quieted, Adrian found her on the terrace. "That wasn't terrible," he said. "High praise." "I'm serious. I didn't hate it. You talked to Lord Chambers for 20 minutes. He's less boring than I remembered." Lillian laughed. "You're getting better at this." "At what?" "Being human." Adrian pulled her close. "Only because you taught me." "I didn't teach you anything. You taught me everything." He kissed her forehead. "How to stay. How to fight. How to believe I was worth fighting for." "Adrian, let me finish." His voice was soft but firm. "I was dead when you arrived, not physically, but in every way that mattered. And you refused to let me stay that way. You fought for me when I wouldn't fight for myself. And I don't know how to thank you for that." Lillian's eyes filled with tears. "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do. Because you saved my life. You saved mine too." They stood on the terrace, holding each other under the stars, and let the truth of it settle between them. Two broken people who'd found each other in the dark. Two terrified souls who'd chosen to stay anyway. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was real. Autumn came again, marking a full year since Lillian had arrived at Blackmore. She woke on the anniversary to find Adrian already awake, watching her. "Happy anniversary," he said. "Is it happy?" "Isn't it?" Lillian thought about the year, the fights, the fear, the near disaster, the slow, painful healing. "Yes, it is." "Even with everything?" "Especially with everything." Adrian traced a finger down her cheek. "I have something for you." "Another ring?" "Better?" He led her downstairs, through the house, out to the courtyard. A new carriage waited there, smaller than the ducal monstrosity, painted deep green, elegant and simple. "It's yours," Adrian said, "for visiting tenants, going to town, whatever you want. Your freedom. I should have given it to you a year ago." Lillian stared at the carriage, at the symbol of everything she'd fought for: autonomy, respect, the ability to move through the world on her own terms. "Thank you," she whispered. "There's more." He handed her a document. Legal papers, transferring half the estate management into her name, making her not just the Duchess in title, but in power. "Adrian, this is overdue. You've been running this place for a year. You should have the authority to match." "Your solicitor approved this?" "After I yelled at him for an hour? Yes." Lillian laughed through tears. "You yelled?" "I'm learning to stand up for things that matter." He pulled her close. "You matter. More than anything." She kissed him, deep and fierce and full of everything she couldn't put into words. When they pulled apart, Adrian was smiling. "What?" Lillian asked. "I'm happy. Actually, genuinely happy. I didn't think that was possible." "Neither did I. But here we are. Here we are." They stood in the courtyard, surrounded by the estate they'd built together, and let themselves believe in it. Paras. The years passed. Not easily. There were still fights, still moments when Adrian retreated or Lillian pushed too hard. But they'd learned how to weather it, how to come back to each other, how to choose partnership over pride. Peter grew into the head groom, then the estate manager, then a trusted friend who knew all their secrets and loved them anyway. Mrs. Hewitt unbent enough to become something almost like an ally, though she never quite mastered warmth. Marcus visited twice a year, and each time the conversations got a little easier. The estate flourished. The tenants prospered. Blackmore became known not as a cold fortress, but as a place of innovation and fairness. And Lillian and Adrian learned, slowly and imperfectly, how to be married. Not the fairy tale kind. The real kind. where love was a choice made daily, where trust was earned in inches, where happiness was built brick by brick through years of showing up. 5 years after their wedding, Lillian found out she was pregnant. She told Adrian in the library, where they'd had so many of their most important conversations. He stared at her, speechless. "Say something," Lillian said. "I'm going to be a father." "Yes." "I don't know how to be a father." "You didn't know how to be a husband either. You figured it out." Adrian pulled her into his arms, shaking. "I'm terrified." "Me too." "What if I mess this up? Then we'll fix it together, like we always do." He kissed her, and Lillian felt his fear and his hope and his love all tangled together. "We're going to be parents," he whispered. "Yes." "Together." "Yes." They stood in the library holding each other and let themselves believe in one more impossible thing. Asimamka. Their daughter was born in spring. She came screaming into the world, tiny and furious and perfect. Lillian held her and cried. Adrian stood beside the bed, staring at the baby like she was a miracle he didn't deserve. "What do we name her?" Lillian asked. Adrian touched the baby's tiny hand. "Hope." "Hope?" "Because that's what you gave me, what she represents, everything I didn't think I could have." Lillian's eyes filled with tears. "Hope, Vire. If you agree." "I agree." They brought Hope home to Blackmore, and the estate, that cold, silent fortress, transformed again, into a place of laughter and chaos and sleepless nights and overwhelming love. Adrian was a nervous father, constantly worried he'd break something, but he showed up, every night, every feeding, every cry. He didn't run. Lillian watched him one night, pacing the nursery with Hope in his arms, murmuring soft reassurances. "You're good at this," she said. "I'm terrified. But you're doing it anyway." He looked at her over their daughter's head. "I learned from the best." The years continued. Hope grew into a wild, fearless child who climbed trees and terrorized the staff and had both her parents wrapped around her tiny finger. 2 years later, a son arrived, quieter than his sister, thoughtful and careful. They named him James, after Adrian's father. The house filled with noise and life and love. And through it all, Lillian and Adrian kept choosing each other. On their 10th anniversary, they stood on the terrace where they'd had so many important conversations. "Do you remember what you said to me the night I tried to leave?" Lillian asked. "I said a lot of things." "You said you loved me." "I did." "Do you still?" Adrian pulled her close. "More than I did then. More than I thought possible." "Even with all the chaos?" "Especially with the chaos." Lillian rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "I never thought we'd make it." "Neither did I." "But we did." "We did?" They stood together, looking out over the estate. Their estate, their home, their legacy. Two people who'd almost destroyed each other had instead built something neither could have created alone. A marriage, a family, a life. It wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was theirs, and that was everything. 20 years after their wedding, Lillian stood in the main hall of Blackmore, watching Hope and James argue over estate business. They'd grown into remarkable adults, Hope fierce and passionate like her mother, James steady and thoughtful like his father at his best. Together, they were transforming the estate into something even greater than what Lillian and Adrian had built. Adrian appeared at her elbow, graying now, but still strong. "They're going to be fine," he said. "I know. Better than fine. They're going to surpass us." "Good," Lillian smiled. "That's what we raised them to do." Adrian took her hand, a gesture so familiar now it was like breathing. "Do you have any regrets?" Lillian thought about it. About the cold beginning, the brutal middle, the hard-won peace, about all the fights and fears and moments when everything almost fell apart. "No," she said, "not one." "Not even the locked doors?" "Not even that. Because it taught us something important." "What?" "That we'd fight for this. For each other, no matter how hard it got." Adrian pulled her close, and they stood in the hall, the same hall where Lillian had arrived 20 years ago, cold and alone and terrified. Now it was warm, full of life and laughter and love. everything she'd fought for, everything they'd built together. "Thank you," Adrian whispered into her hair. "For what?" "For not giving up on me, even when I gave you every reason to." Lillian smiled. "Thank you for learning to stay. I'm still learning. So am I." They held each other in the hall of Blackmore, surrounded by the life they'd created, the family they'd built, the love they'd fought for. Two broken people who'd found each other in the dark and refused to let go. Who'd learned that survival wasn't just enduring the cold, it was bringing warmth back into it. Who'd proven that the strongest foundations weren't built in perfect conditions, but in the harshest ones. That love wasn't about finding someone perfect, it was about choosing someone imperfect and building something beautiful anyway. They'd survived, they'd thrived, and together they'd turned a prison into a home, a duty into a choice, a marriage into a legacy. That was enough. That was everything.